who's, excuse me, the Director of Occupational Safety and Health Services, also known as DOSH. And thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
And of course, what we're looking at is health and safety at your workplace and some of the minimum requirements that you require, and especially in the wake of the coronavirus, COVID-19. Certain measures have to be put in place, must be put in place for us to contain. So, Daktari, karibu sana. And maybe let's just start with some of the minimum requirements, and maybe as an audit, you've walked into Standard Group.
Yes.
What is your take so far?
These are unprecedented times, and across the world, there has never been a time like this, when the entire world has practically come to a shutdown. You've seen the biggest economies like the US actually completely stopping flights from Europe. Those are huge implications in terms of population movements and economies. You've seen what China has done in terms of complete shutdown of all their systems. For those who have traveled to China before, you know how the big mega cities tend to be extremely crowded, and when you come, they actually look like ghost towns. In essence, the person's respecting, the public health message that has been given by the government. Closer home, our president has followed cue and actually taken the right decision for this country in terms of requiring persons who do not need to be in their workplaces and in places where there's crowding, not to be there. And you can see that the city is slowly, the activities are coming down
reducing
slowly,
and crowds reducing,
and obviously that has a major impact on the spread of this infection. You rightly mentioned I've come into the Standard Group. I've noticed I've been here before. Previously we were they 6 panelists. Today I just have you.
Yes.
I'm seeing there's obviously a reduction of the number of workforce to probably those that are absolutely essential, which is a good step.
The sanitizers at the gate, temperature
yes, the sanitizers at the gate, the screening for presence of fevers, and thereafter exclusions from persons with fever from the premises. Those are important measures.
Okay. One of the things, of course, government has mentioned through the Ministry of Health is that people should work from home.
Yes.
And that, of course, has its own dynamics. But some of the SMEs are still working. What are some of the things that employees should at least expect, even for the smaller, medium enterprises? I mean, a place like Standard Group, as a big organization, we have sanitizers, we have, running water, we have people checking temperatures, but that may not be the standard for a smaller company.
Absolutely. First, in understanding the science of the illness, this is an infectious disease. This is a communicable disease. This is a disease that has the potential of completely collapsing health infrastructure and causing even bigger long-term challenges, not just in the health sector, but also in the economy. There's the issue of separating the persons who must come to work and the persons who need not come to work. And in doing that, you end up with only a critical number of people who must come to work. In Kenya, unfortunately, is that formal workplaces where people are actually employed and in companies and we only make up maybe a maximum of 20% of the workplaces. In all the statistics,
huge number is informal.
Yes, in the last Kenya National Bureau of Statistics actually showed about 76%. In the current one, I'm waiting for the stats. Actually, it looks like it's higher. It's closer to almost 80. So we are talking about interventions that work in formal workplaces, but we have this large group of workers who are in the micro and small enterprises, who are, individual-based entrepreneurs.
Correct.
The Juakali worker, the guy who comes
in the market.
Yes, the guy in the market. The guy who comes and cuts your fence. The guy who, the person who actually leaves the house and has to go to industrial area and has to get that day that daily wage
right.
for him to be able. And this is a vulnerable group. Obviously, the principles in terms of infection control, the principles will remain the same. Because we know that the issues of social distancing become important in these infections we call droplet infections. Droplet are those that, if I'm symptomatic and I sneeze at you, I cough at you, you are likely to catch the infection. And the first important thing for this group of people is information, which I think the government is doing a good job. Right now, if you stopped in the streets and asked anybody about the coronavirus, he would be able to tell you, yes, it's spread like this and I need to do A, B, C, D. With information, the human being has a large sense of self-protection. And we generally don't just go into places where we know there's going to be harm. So the first thing that is information. And in this information, we need to provide information in the sense that, listen, first, there are basic things you need to do. You must come to work because you are in a vulnerable profession.
Right.
But let's agree that, number one, in the event you're going to be exhibiting symptoms of the same, you need to exclude yourself. And if you can't, the workplace must exclude you. That's possible, even in a construction site.
Correct.
It's possible to do that. It's possible to institute hand hygiene. In terms of just, I've seen very creative things even in the rural areas. I've seen people putting up even just, buckets of water, which they have either boiled or sanitized otherwise with chlorine, and systems where they just put a stick at the bottom and push them down and use them to wash your hands.
Right.
The issue of sanitation, you cannot run away from it in terms of infection control. The issue of hand sanitizers, of course, right now there's a concern that because of the mass buys and the panic buys that happen, a lot of them are not there in the supermarket.
They may run out.
They may run out, but I'm glad that some of the suppliers, including the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, have stepped in and and a large amount of them are out there, and I think they are keeping the prices.
They're keeping that. So an area that I'd want us to look at as we discuss this is, yes, fine, we have students coming home.
Yes.
So that they're not crowded in schools. We have people working from home so that they're not, the commuting and all that is reduced. But we also need to take measures while we're at home. These students, when they come home, chances are they'll also interact and play during their break times. Is that an area that maybe information needs to be a bit more heightened?
Yes, actually, that's an area of worry. Personally to myself, and I think for any infectious disease person, any public health person. The idea in asking people to stay at home is to reduce transmission. And it may be foolhardy for you to move the transmission potential from for example, the workplace and commute places, to move them to residential areas. If you've looked at across the world, there is an inconvenience, a huge inconvenience in requiring you to actually stay in your house. But sometimes you have to think, what is the price to pay if you don't? If you don't.
And I want to pause you there because I want us to cross over to Kwale, where we have our reporter Tobias Chanji, and he is going to highlight for us what's happening on the ground. I believe there is a funeral that's supposed to be taking place. And of course, one of the directives was for funerals to be conducted within a certain specified time, which was 24 hours, but also reduce the number. So let's cross over to Tobias Chanji, maybe just to give us what's happening on the ground practically. Tobias, just let us know what is happening.
A very good morning, Mike. We're in Zigira village in Kinondo ward, that is in Msambweni constituency of Kwale County. And as everyone is aware, there was the government directive of banning funerals, or rather restricting it to 24 hours. Remember that where we are now is Muslim predominantly, and therefore the rule has been most of the time been applied. But now, as you can see behind me, that's just the grave grave being dug currently of one Mzee James Gitonga, who died last week. And according to them, there are some of precaution measures they've already put up here, making sure that everyone who comes in this homestead has cleaned themselves, and there's that social distancing. Remember, the late is the father to one of our friends, a colleague, a reporter of one of the stations, Kenyan stations, based here in Kwale County. And now, for now, let's just engage him and see maybe if they have other further precautions that are making sure that everyone who will be coming here will have to abide by. Karibu bro, pole kwa msiba uliowapata. Labda tuelezee tu, kando na yeye tunaendelea, labda tuelezee tu masuala mengine ambayo mtafanya kuzingatia kuwa labda usafi umedunishwa.
Asante. Tunajua kwamba mwanzo naitwa Niki Gitonga kama vile ulivyosema. Tunajua ya kwamba serikali imeweza kutoa kwamba yale maagizo ya kwamba wakati kusiwe pengine na mazishi, kusiwe na harusi, lakini unajua wakati kama kumetokea msiba, hakuna vile mtu utazikaje na watu 10 family members, it doesn't add up. Lakini hii leo baba yetu ndo tunampumzisha na tumeweka zile tunaziita measures. Hapa unaona kwamba hizo ndo tunaweka, ambapo watu watakuwa kiosha mikono na kuna Dettol kujaribu kama mtu ana viini vyake basi vife. Kitu kingine pia tutajaribu kwamba wakati wa ibada ikiendelea, watu watakuwa wako mbalimbali, yaani kusikuwa na ule mgusano, ndo kusikuwe pengine na kama mtu ana basi kama hivyo virusi vya corona vya ukweli mtu asipate. Hizo ndio vitu ambazo tunapanga, lakini kwa sasa tunasubiri mwili ambao uko nasikia umefika Ukunda, ukija alafu tumpumzishe mzee. Yes.
Labda kufika siku, kuna masaa ambayo umeweka kuhakikisha kuwa kufika wakati fulani lazima kwa labda mzee amezikwa, ndio kuhakikisha kuwa labda hawatokeshi hapa? Hatukeshi. Hata unajua kawaida ulikuwa ni mzee na karibu miaka 68. Kwa kawaida tungetarajiwa kwamba kama jana pengine mwili ungekuwa umekuja hapa ukalala, lakini hatukufanya hivyo. Tumehakikisha kwamba mwili unatoka direct kutoka mochari ambayo imekuwa Jocha Mombasa, ukija hapa ni ibada fupi, kwa sababu pia alikuwa ni mzee wa kanisa, afanywe ibada na wachungaji na pengine wakazi ambao ni wa hapa. Baadaye kama saa 8, yani kichelewa sana, unajua mazishi huwezi harakisha, ile ukolo wa Mungu. Ikifika kama saa 8 kila mtu yeye ameenda kwao. Kidogo naona viti vilivyopangwa kama hakuna mita moja, sijui mmepanga vipi?
Wajua ni mapema bado. Kuna vijana ndio nataka niwapange angalau hivyo viti viekwe mbalimbali. We are still ni wale ambao kwa event organizers ndio kwa tumewaita, lakini naona wamepanga karibu. But now we want to kuhakikisha kwamba hizo viti zinakuwa mbalimbali. Ndio haya basi, Mungu atusaidie.
Sawa, shukrani kabisa. Na pole kwa msiba.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mike, as you've heard, that is Niki Gitonga, the son to the late, who is going to be buried here any time from now. And as we've heard, there are already measures that are put in place to make sure that there's that social distancing and also people keep high standard hygiene. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much to Tobias Chanji, who's in Kwale, and that's a funeral that is expected to take place later. But of course, these are unprecedented times and things have to be done differently, looking at the hygiene levels. One of the other things, of course, that one would wonder is, are we going to be able to maintain, because we would hope that out of all this we have a lesson that we pick, and that would be of hygiene. Are these practical measures that we're able to keep up with, particularly given that running water for many of us is a challenge?
Yes, thank you. Actually, when you really look at the information that we are giving out there for preventing the transmission of this virus, it's not new information. It's actually information that has been there before. And is information of what should actually have been done.
Should be standard practice.
Should have been standard practice. And in my own view, every cloud does have a silver lining. And we are a resilient people, and in my mind, I have no doubt that we are going to weather this storm. It's going to take a lot of commitment from each and every one of us to do what is required to be done. But at the end of this, this pandemic, the hope is that we are going to have understood and internalized and put in the mechanisms that become standard mechanisms of living and working, especially in terms of sanitation, in terms of water availability, safe water availability, which of course is a huge challenge. There's both a citizen role, a large role in terms of government.
Right.
But essentially to sort of bring the river back to its course.
Absolutely.
In terms
and one of the things we were talking about before we went to Kwale was the question of how we should handle ourselves at home. What advice would you give to those of us working from home and those of us who have our children home? Because at some point they need to go out and play. But who are they playing with? How do they play? It's not practical to tell children, to play with the 1.5 meter difference. What advice would you give?
First, it's always important to understand the science of the illness and always be conscious about why is it am I working at home? What is it I'm mitigating? Okay, it's convenient, I'm home, I'm with my children, but the primary reason is for purposes of infection control. Right. And the issues of infection control, the most important thing becomes social distancing. So it is possible for you to, even if the children are playing, for you to limit the number of children, for example, whom the children can play with. And also make a conscious effort to actually screen who it is and the setting in which the children can play. So that if, for example, there's a child who's going to be running a fever, who's actually exhibiting respiratory symptoms, you can actually, as a parent, a responsible parent, you'd actually require your child not to go out and play if he's exhibiting these symptoms. And proactively for the parent who's out there to also do the same.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pause you a little bit.